The walls of Buckingham Palace have seen their share of joy, grief, and whispered secrets. But few moments have ever been as heartbreaking as what unfolded behind those grand doors just days ago. According to close royal sources, Princess Anne, the famously stoic and duty-driven sister of King Charles III, was seen breaking down in tears after learning the full extent of her brother's hidden struggles. For a woman known for her composure, this was a rare and deeply emotional moment that left those around her stunned. King Charles has always been portrayed as the man born to carry the weight of the crown, but behind the royal facade lies a private world filled with pain, doubt, and silent suffering. The past few years have taken a visible toll on him, not only his health, but also the emotional burden of being the monarch in an age of constant scrutiny. Those closest to him have described a man quietly at war with his own past, haunted by regrets that few can imagine. And for Princess Anne, the revelation of just how much her brother has endured in silence shattered the strong front she has maintained her entire life. What she discovered about his condition, his personal guilt, and the enormous pressures he has concealed from even his closest family members left her completely undone. Today, we uncover the truth behind what really happened inside the palace, and why Princess Anne's tears reveal more than words ever could about the royal family's deepest pain. Long before the world saw them as figures of formality and royal protocol, King Charles III and Princess Anne were simply siblings, two children growing up in a palace where duty came before affection. From the outside, their lives seemed gilded and perfect, but inside, they were shaped by a strict upbringing that left little room for emotional expression. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip loved their children deeply, but their version of love was expressed through discipline, not hugs. In this environment, Charles and Anne learned early how to survive the emotional coldness that came with being royal. Anne, younger by nearly 2 years, quickly became her brother's protector. She was sharp, confident, and direct. Everything Charles was not. While he was sensitive and introspective, often lost in thought, Anne was grounded, practical, and tough. Together, they balanced each other in ways few outside the family understood. As Charles once confided to a friend, Anne has always been the one person who understood me without words. Growing up under the public eye, their bond was tested by their parents' demanding schedules and the rigid expectations of royal life. When Charles was sent away to Gordonstown, a boarding school known for its harsh discipline, Anne was one of the few who recognized the deep scars it left on him. Charles often wrote home describing the loneliness and bullying he endured, and though the letters were meant for his mother, it was Anne who sensed the pain behind his polite words. She later admitted, "He wasn't built for that kind of place. It broke something in him." As adults, their relationship only grew stronger. While others in the royal family often misunderstood Charles's sensitivity, Anne accepted it as part of who he was. When his marriage to Princess Diana began to crumble, Anne was one of the few who didn't judge him or take sides. She saw her brother not as the future king, but as a man caught between love, duty, and regret. Those who worked with the royals at the time remember how Anne would quietly visit Charles at Highgrove, offering words of comfort without ever prying into his personal turmoil. Yet, their bond was never about dramatic gestures. It was built on a quiet understanding, one forged through decades of shared experience. They had seen the same royal machinery up close, felt its weight, and learned to survive within its constraints. When Queen Elizabeth passed, both siblings leaned on each other in ways the public would never see. During the state funeral, many noticed Anne's steady presence beside her brother, her subtle glances, her reassuring posture. It wasn't just duty. It was love in its most silent, unspoken form. But even Anne, with all her strength and insight, didn't know everything. She had no idea of the emotional burden Charles was hiding. The pressures of kingship, the health challenges whispered about by palace insiders, and the guilt he carried from the past, all were locked away behind his calm, measured expression. The world saw a monarch fulfilling his destiny. Anne saw a brother slowly breaking under its weight. In private, she had often urged him to take time for himself, to rest, to live. "You've given your whole life to the crown," she told him once, "but don't let it take the rest of you." Charles would smile, thank her, and change the subject. It was his way of protecting her, and perhaps protecting himself. It wasn't until recently that the walls finally came down and Anne was confronted with the truth of what her brother had been enduring. What she learned would leave her shaken to her core, forcing her to see Charles not as a king, but as a fragile human being, one who had quietly sacrificed more than anyone ever realized. Behind the royal smiles, ceremonial robes, and carefully planned appearances, King Charles III carries a private burden few will ever truly understand. For decades, he has been the man born to wait, a prince who spent the majority of his life in the shadow of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. When she passed, the crown he had anticipated for so long finally became his. But it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like a reckoning. Charles's life has been defined by duty, but that duty has come with immense personal cost. Sources close to the king reveal that he has battled quiet exhaustion, bouts of melancholy, and moments of deep regret about the past. The weight of being the monarch of a modern Britain, one divided by politics, media scrutiny, and constant change, has been overwhelming. To the public, he remains composed and thoughtful, but in private, those closest to him describe a man who often sits in silence, staring at old photographs of his parents and children, as if searching for the simpler days that never truly existed. His health has also become a growing concern. Though the palace has been careful not to disclose much, whispers suggest that the king has faced several private medical battles over the past year. These struggles, combined with the relentless royal schedule, have taken their toll. Princess Anne, known for her practicality, had often dismissed such rumors as exaggeration until she saw it with her own eyes. During a private family gathering earlier this year, Anne reportedly noticed how pale and frail her brother looked. Gone was the robust man who had spent decades championing environmental causes, traveling the world and shaking hands with thousands. Instead, Charles appeared drained, his once steady voice now softer, more fragile. When Anne confronted him about it, his response stopped her cold. "I'm fine, Anne. I just have less time than I thought." Those 7 words haunted her. For a man like Charles, who had lived his life planning for every eventuality, to suddenly speak of time running out was deeply unsettling. It wasn't just about health. It was about everything he carried within him: the regrets over his failed marriage to Diana, the distance between him and Prince Harry, and the public's lingering resentment that had followed him for years. Friends of the king say he's been increasingly reflective, often confiding in a small circle about his fears of not leaving behind the legacy his mother did. "Mummy's shoes were never meant to be filled," he once said quietly during a private dinner. "But I keep trying, even when they hurt to wear." Anne had always admired her brother's resilience, but seeing him this way broke something inside her. The man who had once carried the future of the monarchy on his shoulders now seemed tired, not just physically, but emotionally. It was then she realized that behind every polished royal statement, behind every wave and smile, was a man holding himself together for the sake of the institution he was born to protect. In the following weeks, Anne began spending more time at Buckingham Palace and Balmoral, quietly keeping an eye on her brother. She reportedly canceled several public engagements to be by his side. For those who know her, this spoke volumes. Princess Anne doesn't cancel royal duties unless something truly serious is at play. As the reality of Charles's hidden struggles became undeniable, Anne's strong facade began to crumble. For the first time, she confided in close aides that she feared her brother was fighting a battle he refuses to name. Her words carried both love and helplessness, the kind only a sister could feel for a man who had given everything, even his peace of mind, to serve the crown. But the most heartbreaking moment was yet to come, when Anne would learn the full truth about Charles's private suffering and why he kept it from everyone, including her. The truth came quietly, not through headlines or royal briefings, but through a conversation Anne never expected to have. One cold evening at Balmoral Castle, She sat across from her brother, the king, as the fire crackled in the silence between them. She had come to check on him after noticing his worsening fatigue, but that night, Charles seemed more vulnerable than ever. His usual warmth was replaced by a heavy stillness, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "Anne," he said softly, "you've always been the strong one. I've envied that." She smiled faintly, brushing it off with her usual humor, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He wasn't making small talk. He was saying goodbye in a way only siblings could understand, without needing to use the word. That's when he confessed. The hidden truth that had been weighing on him for months, possibly years. The doctors had confirmed what he had quietly feared. His health struggles were far more serious than the palace had let on. While the official reports mentioned routine treatments, the reality was much grimmer. Charles had been diagnosed with a progressive condition that would slowly weaken him, affecting his ability to carry out royal duties. Anne sat frozen. Her brother, the man who had spent his life preparing for this role, was now facing the one thing he couldn't prepare for: the loss of control over his own body. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The tears came uninvited, catching even her by surprise. Anne, the most disciplined and composed of the royals, found herself breaking apart in front of the brother she had always promised to protect. Charles reached out and held her hand, something he rarely did. "Please don't cry," he whispered. "This isn't the end of me. It's just a quieter chapter." But Anne knew what he really meant. The man who had carried the weight of the monarchy, who had endured years of public criticism and private heartbreak, was now facing his final and most personal battle, and doing it with the same dignity he had shown all his life. For Anne, the pain wasn't just about his illness. It was about the guilt she felt for not seeing it sooner. She had dismissed his exhaustion as age, his silence as royal restraint. But now, looking into his tired eyes, she realized how much he had kept hidden to protect those he loved. "Why didn't you tell me?" she finally asked. His answer was simple and devastating. "Because I didn't want you to worry. You've always carried enough for all of us." In that moment, the royal formality that had defined their lives fell away. They weren't the king and the princess. They were just Charles and Anne, brother and sister, bound by love and loss. They sat in silence, letting the years of unspoken emotion fill the room. For the first time in a long while, Anne allowed herself to cry freely, her tears falling onto the hand that once guided her through childhood. After that evening, the relationship between the two changed profoundly. Anne became even more protective, often staying close during engagements and ensuring her brother rested when needed. Insiders noticed how she subtly began taking on more public duties, not out of ambition, but out of love. "She's his shield now," one palace aide quietly remarked, and while the public continued to see a dignified monarch fulfilling his role, those within the palace walls knew the truth, that behind every calm appearance stood a sister's unwavering strength and a brother's silent courage. It was the night that reminded them both that no crown, no title, and no royal duty could ever outweigh the bond of family. As the weeks turned into months, the royal household entered a period of deep reflection. Prince Anne, often described as the pillar of strength within the monarchy, was seen emerging from Sandringham Chapel, visibly emotional, clutching a small prayer book once belonging to her late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Insiders revealed that she had spent the morning in quiet contemplation, reflecting on her brother's long-hidden battles and the emotional toll they had taken on the entire family. For decades, Charles had carried himself as a symbol of duty, loyalty, and unwavering commitment to his role as the sovereign. Yet behind the polished exterior lay a man weighed down by personal sacrifices. Prince Anne, who shared an unspoken bond with him since childhood, had always known there was more to her brother's story than the public ever saw. But it was only after a recent revelation about his ongoing health challenges and the isolation of his position that the full picture came to light, and it broke her heart. According to a close family friend, Anne had often reminded Charles to take care of himself, to prioritize his well-being over relentless duty. But Charles, ever the monarch, often brushed off her concerns with a smile, saying, "The crown doesn't wait, dear sister." For Anne, those words now echoed with unbearable sorrow. In the wake of the revelations, she confessed to feeling a mixture of guilt and helplessness, emotions rarely associated with her famously composed demeanor. During a recent private family meeting at Balmoral, sources say Anne finally broke down, telling those closest to her, "I thought I understood what he carried. I didn't realize how much it cost him." Those words reportedly moved everyone in the room, including Queen Camilla and Prince William, who have both quietly shouldered the emotional burden of watching their husband and father face the unimaginable pressures of the crown. The revelation of King Charles's hidden struggles has reshaped the public's perception of the royal family. Gone are the distant figures shrouded in ceremony and protocol. In their place stands a family facing deeply human pain, one marked by resilience, love, and unity in the face of hardship. Prince William, in particular, has stepped forward as the bridge between generations, working tirelessly to ensure his father's legacy endures while also protecting his privacy. Royal watchers have noted that William's demeanor has softened in recent months. In speeches and public engagements, he often references the importance of compassion, empathy, and mental health, terms once considered too personal for the stoic world of royalty. Insiders believe these subtle shifts stem directly from witnessing his father's struggles and his Aunt Anne's emotional reckoning. Behind the palace gates, the family dynamic has changed as well. The once formal dinners have become more intimate gatherings, often filled with laughter and shared memories of the late Queen. Anne, who rarely shows vulnerability, has been more open about her emotions, confiding in those around her that she wishes she had done more to ease her brother's burden. Despite the emotional storm, those close to the family insist that this period of hardship has also brought them closer together than ever before. One insider noted, "It's been painful, yes, but for the first time they're not just a royal family, they're a family. Full stop." As for King Charles, he continues to maintain his schedule as best as his health allows, supported by the unwavering love of his sister and his children. Recent photos of the monarch show him smiling warmly beside Anne, both appearing visibly emotional during a church service, a rare, candid moment that spoke louder than any royal statement. Observers say this in royal history will be remembered not for its grandeur, but for its humanity. The image of Princess Anne, tears streaming down her face as she embraced her brother after a private ceremony, has already become symbolic, a moment of pure vulnerability that shattered decades of silence about the emotional cost of the crown. In the end, what began as a hidden struggle has transformed into a story of love, forgiveness, and unity. The monarchy, long seen as an unmovable institution, now stands as a testament to resilience, proof that even those born into crowns and castles are not immune to the trials of the human heart. And as the sun set over Windsor Castle one quiet evening, a single light burned late in the king's study. Perhaps, as many believe, it was not just a sign of royal duty, but a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, family remains the true source of strength.